大家好，我是刘龙珠律师。完了这一期的龙珠喷天下，今天呢是美国时间2022年3月17号，所以呢，我今天特别请到 International Relations Expert 国际关系专家 International Law Expert 国际法专家 Dr. Ronnie Chow to be on the show 作为这个部分。然后呢，我们请教一下专家，听一下他怎么说，免得你们老说刘律师你拿大嘴狂喷，究竟说的对不对？对不对？我们今天来看一下。Dr. Chow, thank you for coming all the way and being part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Today, though, the topic actually is your expertise. My understanding is that you actually attended UCLA, right? You majored in political science with concentration of international relations.
That's correct. My area of study was for Russia, China, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. That was the area that I mainly studied for all of this relationships between the countries and how they interact.
I see. So it's fair to say is that you actually formally trained for that kind of knowledge, right? So in terms of the Russian invasion in Ukraine right now, first of all, can you tell us a little bit of the background as to how it happened?
Yeah. So the U.S. has been getting a lot of criticism about its inaction for Ukraine and for Russia and Putin. So the area that we have to look at first is the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. So towards the end of the Cold War, Russia, United States, and Britain committed to assure the security interests of Ukraine, for them to give up around 1,900 nuclear warheads, right? Now, the key word here is assurance. They didn't guarantee. And that's how the Biden administration has been getting away with it, because it's a term of art. We are assuring you that we'll honor these agreements, but we're not guaranteeing you that we'll honor this agreement. Another interpretation of it is that the United States didn't break that pact because they didn't invade Ukraine. They assured them of their security interests, right? So that is one of the reasons why the United States have been criticized, but at the same time, they have a legal loophole within the treaty or the memorandum of that summit, the Budapest summit, to get away with it.
Okay, so let me ask you, what's the difference is between these two terms, assurance and guarantee?
So when you assure someone that you're going to do something, you're saying it as if most likely I'll help, right? Most likely I'll do it as long as my interests are aligned with you. But when you guaranteed someone, you're 100% doing that.
Do you think that before the treaty was signed, do you think that difference was thoroughly explained to Ukrainians, right? Do you think that the U.S. representative, right, whoever that was there, in 1994, said to the president of Ukraine back then, saying, you know what, Mr. President, so you know, right? So we really want you to get rid of those about 2,000 nuclear warheads. But if something happens, if you are under attack, most likely we will help you. But it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
So you probably want to think about it. Do you think that was said to the president of Ukraine?
Well, first of all, the summit was between multi-nations, right? They don't speak all the same language. They're interpreters, they're diplomats, they're all talking with each other. So most likely the translation was lost. The U.S. used the term assurance, but most likely in translation, the Ukrainians probably thought, oh, you guaranteed it.
So you think actually the key thing, or at least one of the key things or key issues was the language barrier. Maybe the person who actually was in charge of the negotiations does not speak English that well, does not understand the difference between assurance and guarantee.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, most likely they were trying to bargain for the best of both parties, right? There were three assurances that Ukraine wanted. Kiev wanted compensation for the value of the highly enriched uranium within those warheads, right? So the second one was to eliminate ICBM silos so bombers won't come cheaply. And the third was Ukraine wanted a guarantee for the security interest. See, they wanted guarantees of security interest. But the U.S. said, we assured you that we'll protect you with the security interest. Yeah.
So what's the holdback? Like, what's a reservation on Joe Biden administration It's like obviously, U.S. is not doing much, aside from ordering stuff from Amazon and sending it over, right? So that's why Zelensky, has been pretty busy pleading not just to us, not just to the U.S., but to other NATO countries, right? So clearly he's saying that, well, I appreciate that you, try to help, but that's not enough. So what's holding Biden administration back? What do you think that is?
So this topic is more towards there's multi factors that are involved, right? Foreign policy is not single dimension. It's a multitude of factors that prevents someone or some actor to actually engage or not engage into a decision. So the most recent thing that we can remember is that the recent election. The recent election was so contested, even though a lot of the election websites predicted that Joe Biden was going to win convincingly, right? It would be quick, it would be convincing. He'll win 80% of every single predictions and tallies that they had, right? But he didn't. It was very close. The fact that it's very close makes him very nervous because what's coming up is the midterm elections. And because the midterm elections are coming up, it will make him fear that if you start a war now, you engage in a war now with COVID, with all these economic problems that we're having, he might not win. And he might cause his party to win for the midterm elections. And he needs, because right now it's 50-50 in the Senate, right? And the tiebreaker is Kamala Harris. So if he loses a single seat, one single seat in the US Senate, he can't pass any policy. And especially with Joe Manchin right now, he refuses to engage in any policy that is good for the Democratic Party of Joe Biden's agenda. The other factor is if you consider Afghanistan, his withdrawal, it was considered widely a disaster, mainly because it was so abrupt. Weapons were left behind, body armors were left behind. You can see pictures of the Taliban taking pictures of themselves in full US body armor with M4s, M16s, M24 sniper systems, and Humvees. We're lucky that the Taliban doesn't have the fuel to fuel those helicopters, right? They have the cars, the vehicles, and the helicopters, but they don't have fuel.
See, say that if you wasn't for the consideration for the midterm, do you think Biden administration would have done something about it?
It's not always 100% sure of foreign policy, but he'd be more likely inclined to intervene if there weren't some sort of political pressure on him. If he knows for sure.
So you were saying that by going to war right now, by engaging Russians in Ukraine, by sending our troops to Europe, you think that this is going to be unpopular?
It's going to be highly
domestically, right? So meaning that the midterm is going to be affected. But on the other hand, my understanding is a lot of people are not happy with Joe Biden not taking an aggressive stand, especially considering the fact that U.S. is deemed the leader of the free world. So, I understand that there might be a difference between assurance and a guarantee, but I'm pretty sure Ukrainians don't see it that way, right? Yeah. You assured me, you guaranteed me. What's the difference, right? So, do you think that actually the image of America, image of Americans, what's important, the core value of America, of being an American, would be negatively impacted? People are going to think, well, you promised Ukrainians that if they were on attack, you're going to help them. That's why they got rid of the nuclear warheads. But clearly, they're on attack. People are getting killed, it's not on a daily basis. Every single minute, there's people being killed, like we're not doing anything. In a way, is that we manipulate Ukraine into signing that treaty with us. We went back on our words. So, in essence, Americans cannot be trusted. Do you think that that's also like something that's really bad? It's kind of like before people look up to America. To be precise, American value. I think one of the core values is that you keep your promise, right? You make a promise, you deliver that promise. You don't go back on your words. But clearly, we're not doing that. So, balancing that against the midterm, do you think, say you, Dr. Trump, if you were the president of the United States, President Trump, would you engage Russians in Ukraine? Would you send our troops to Europe?
So this approach is very complicated because there are data that the economic sanctions are working, right? My approach would be to wait it out. Heavily impose sanctions, communicate with the EU, communicate with our NATO allies to impose heavy sanctions to see the response of Putin. If there is a high damage to their economic system in Russia and to the military because it's no longer supported financially, you wouldn't have to go in. However, if economic sanctions are not working and you see it in that sort of position, I would send troops to intervene, right, to honor our pact. Because the history of the US since the 1900s to now with the military interventions in Iraq, Vietnam, Afghanistan, we've never won anything. We always just go there, mess things up, and leave, right? Especially in the Middle East. The Middle East are based on tribal systems. The tribes are always fighting each other for power in Afghanistan. That's why we can never win. The Taliban is not one single individual or entity. The Taliban are a multitude of multiple pockets of tribal leaders. You can kill Osama bin Laden, but then there are 10,000 more that will pop up and they'll lead and they'll follow, right? The US, in a sense, was part of that influence that helped them unite, common enemy. And that's how the reason they came back. And they attacked us and we couldn't win.
So fine, we're not sending troops right now. We're just try out this economic sanctions, method to see if it works, right? If it doesn't work, we'll worry about it later. But why can't we provide at least air support? That's what they need right now. That's what the landscape, that's what Ukrainians desperately need right now. Why can we do that?
Because the reason why we've been so peaceful since the Cold War to now, or even arguably since World War II, is nuclear deterrence, right? Mutually assured destruction is the reason why we're afraid. If we bomb you, you bomb us, we all die, not just one person. In this case, they're afraid that Putin will retaliate. He's a crazy man. If he's willing to engage in all this harm to his people via the economic sanctions and still continue to move his troops in, right? There's a huge chance that he will be able to use that button. In response to the economic sanctions, he actually said to his generals, get ready for the nuclear weapon. If you keep on sanctioning me, I will have to be forced to use nuclear weapons.
Well, see, the thing with the Putin, though, I don't know if he is actually crazy or he's just acting crazy. There's a big difference, right? So my understanding is this. As the saying goes, right? Dogs who bark don't bite. Dogs that bite don't bark, right? So it seems to me Putin is barking a lot. You know what? I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to, deploy nuclear weapon. I'm going to freaking kill everybody. Do you think it's just he's acting crazy, not actually crazy? Basically, he's sending a message, don't mess with me. Otherwise, I'm going to kill everybody. But if that was the case, he could have died already. He could just do it. He doesn't have to kill everybody. So people will be on alert. Well, if you have to put your money down, Dr. Chow, you have to put down $5. Do you think Putin is crazy or is acting crazy?
$5 is a very little amount of money. But if you think about this analysis, basically is he generally is crazy. In the extent that he's been in power for so long, he thinks he's invincible. He rigged every election, right? He continues to be president. Even when there's a new prime minister, he controls the prime minister, right? He has a track record of acting like he's the emperor of Russia and not like a politician where you have to be sure that people are on your side, right? He recently replaced 1,000 of his personal staffers because he's afraid of being poisoned. Now, there's also a saying that if you back a dog into a corner, he will also fight back, right? Now, he's backing himself into a corner. And right now, it's a matter of pride. When he sent his troops into Ukraine, most of them didn't even know it was an invasion. They thought it was a military exercise. Some of them thought it was a military exercise. They didn't even know that they were attacking a country. They thought they were freeing them from a fascist regime, which is incorrect because Ukraine is democratic, right? There were videos of troops being caught, police officers from Russia being caught, that they said, we never knew. We never knew we were the bad guys. That's what they said. And these people they don't know what they're doing. These young conscripts, they're not trained. They were inexperienced, to say the least. They didn't even know how to load gasoline into a tank or go through a winter. There were videos of Ukrainians holding these tanks with tractors, farmers, stealing their tanks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's laughable in a way, right? So here's the thing, though. See, Putin, he always acts like he's this tough guy. He rides a horse. He freaking drives a tank, right? I don't know if he actually can drive a tank, to be frank with you. The tanks are looking pretty complicated. I don't think it's like driving a Tesla. You see what I'm saying? Speaking of Tesla, right? He always acts like he's this tough guy. Nobody can mess with. But right now, we have Elon Musk. Elon Musk actually challenged him, right?
Yeah.
Right. For a one-on-one hand combat, right? He hasn't accepted the challenge. What's with that? Right?
Yeah.
So we can be. What's that's going to happen is that Putin and Elon Musk, they kill themselves. Most 2 people will die, as opposed to 2 million people die. Correct?
That's true. But Elon Musk is just doing his Twitter charades like he always does, right?
Yeah, but I understand that though. But Putin could accept the challenge, right? Considering he's just like a freaking former KGB spy, right? He's this tough dude, right? He's like really good, like at a kung fu, taekwondo, whatever that is, right? He also was at one point, right?
He was really a KGB, like in the sense he was an assassin.
Yeah,
he was more like an analyst.
I see. So basically, he was a tech guy. He was like a nerd, right? So,
yeah,
right, yeah. So it's important. Can you tell us a little bit more about actually Putin's background? A lot of people don't know that. That like Putin's actual background. See, KGB, he was more of a he sits at a desk. He actually freaking writes stuff. Is that basically what an analyst does?
Yeah, mainly he was an analyst researching for the KGB. The KGB, in a sense, back then.
So he wasn't a field agent.
No.
He wasn't like a 007, right? He has like freaking 10 different passports.
Yeah.
Right? He can fly a plane. He can freaking drive a race car. Not like that.
Yeah, he wasn't anything like a spy who's sent to assassinate people. No, he didn't do any of that.
But he's a small guy too, right?
He's very short.
He's especially for Russians. He's like a small dude.
Yeah, he's a very small dude.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So basically the whole like a tough guy thing, like, driving a tank, riding a horse, he always when he rides a horse, he doesn't have his shirt on, right? He's like buff.
Yeah.
The thing though, with that, I think it's just the act. Do you think actually what comes down to is more of his deep-rooted sense, not of security, but insecurity? You see what I'm saying? He's like a people, because I'm so small and I'm freaking the emperor, people are looking down on me. I got to show them you can mess with me. It's the same as a Chihuahua barking. Small dogs bark a lot. Big dogs who can kill, they never bark. They're just going for the kill, right? The Huskies, right? They don't bark. They freaking, kill you.
But he definitely has a good grasp on the manipulation of people and the oligarchs in Russia. That's the reason why he has so much power. He controls the oligarchs. Give them cutbacks. And when you control the economy of a country, you control the country, right? And that's one of the reasons why he's in power for so long. He knows how to manipulate.
So to be precise, these oligarchs are more like his agents in a way. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? He's like a straw man, as we were saying that, there's people, especially in countries like Russia, there. So Putin has a bunch of straw men doing all the dirty deeds for him.
Yeah, that's correct. So we want to go back to if we think that the economic sanctions are working.
Yeah.
Right. Recently, the Russian ruble recovered.
Yeah.
And it recovered in a sense because the Russian central bank injected liquidity into it, around raising interest rates of around 9 to 20%. So they're manipulating the market to raise the interest price to help their money. And they're also nationalizing a lot of their assets. They're preventing their citizens from actually withdrawing money that they need. So they're basically harming their people, their oligarchs. They're all running away. They're all on their yachts and boats of Thailand, of other countries to avoid getting their money taken.
See, one thing I found is very ironic is this, right? So they were saying the reason why they sent the troops to Ukraine, because they were saying that because Ukraine was going to be part of the NATO, right? So Ukraine will become the front, of this enemy land in a way, right?
Yeah.
So since if NATO countries are enemies, right? NATO countries. So why would all those oligarchs have luxury apartments in those NATO countries, in London, in Paris, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense. They have yachts, super expensive yachts. They're sending their kids, to the private schools in NATO countries. If NATO countries are so bad, they are enemies, why would you send your children to the enemies? How does that work?
So the system in the USSR before Russia, became Russia again after the Cold War, was they collapsed because of economic distress. These people are so corrupt, they're just sending people money back and forth, all these party leaders, party secretaries, right? They didn't know the extent of the corruption. So every time there's a report, if you nationalize assets and give everyone the same wage, they think that, hey, this is like the report that this province is earning this much money. It's all fake, right? So there's so much corruption in the sense that the party leaders, the secretary, Mikhail Gorbachev, they thought that the country was doing well when it was in fact not. So a huge problem with that is corruption. That's why they financially collapsed. That's why communism in Russia failed, in a sense, right? Because they weren't able to actually use those policies of communism and socialism to actually get the money out to where it needs to be.
I see. By the way, so do you know this famous American musician? Well, he's also Chinese American musician, Yo-Yo Ma.
Oh,
Like what happened was that he's a cellist and he played cello, like it's actually in front of Russian embassy in Washington D.C. So actually it wasn't really an act to get media attention because he's already very famous already. He's like one of the top musicians. Like in its field, in his field. So, in terms of how the situation is going to develop, like which direction is it going? Do you have any thoughts?
So, as I said before, Putin's feeling the stress. He's already replaced 1,000 of his first staffers because he's afraid of poisoning. What that shows is usually, remember the French Revolution, right?
Yes.
With the March of Versailles and all the women being hungry, the children are starving, so they attack and they march. There are people who are starving. There's only a certain degree where the people can just stop. They can just endure that much economic harm, the hardship. He's sitting there eating all his fancy food, and with his generals, they're all enjoying life and they save all the money because they nationalize all the assets. But there are people who are suffering. They had to spend $600 at McDonald's because McDonald's recently stopped operations in Russia. People don't have necessities. There's pictures of grocery stores where there's not a single item of shampoo, body wash, deodorant. That's the embargo that they're facing now, right? People can't even get basic daily needs.
So to be precise, actually, this is not a war. This is not a Russian's war. This is Putin's war. Because the Russian people are also being harmed in each and every single way, right? In Russia. So my understanding is that there's also a lot of anti-war protests in Russia, right? He's basically, see, he was saying that nationalizing assets. So let me translate. Basically, Putin is stealing money from his own people, right? It's like basically you say you have a savings account with the bank. So he can just take your money, and now your money is my money. What are you going to do, right? So it's really bad. So basically, the way it's going so it is possible that Russian economy will go into a ruin, like Russia as a country, and it will be destroyed before actually before Putin destroys Ukraine.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the reason why they're asking a lot of their allies for help, for money injection from China. They need the actual funding from other countries because they're not able to keep it up. You can only raise interest rates for so long. You can only inject cash for so long, print more money. That won't last forever, right? They will hit a deficit whereby their country the money has any value. They keep on devaluing their own currency at the rate they keep going. So they're just putting their people at a standstill, right? You can't keep nationalizing money from their people. They're going to keep losing it. There's only so many citizens that have money. If you take 100% of the money, there's no more to take after you finish using it. Yeah.
So, and also, what do you think of Zelensky? So it seems to me that people say, well, at least before, people were saying that Zelensky, right? He was an actor. He wasn't really a true politician.
Yeah, he was a comedian.
Right? He was a comedian, right? See, but he could have left Ukraine. He could have escaped Ukraine. He could have come to America. I believe that we offer, saying that, look, well, have you and your family picked up? We can save every single Ukraine, at least we can save your family. But he rejected, right? He said, no, I'm staying with my people, right? So he's being like a hero in a way, right? He's like he's just like the captain, like he's a captain or a sinking ship. The captain could have left. The captain said, no, I'm going down with the ship, right? So and also in comparison with the Putin, seems to me Putin is more of the actor, right? Like he's actually tough. He lives a simple life. As a matter of fact, at least from what I heard, like he has this like a very big, luxurious, like a palace by the Black Sea.
Yeah.
Right? It costs like $1 billion to build. He basically lives a life like a gambler, correct? And he tells people that, I have a small apartment, I make a very little money, it's my salary, right?
Yeah.
So basically, he's putting up an act. Whereas Zelensky, who everybody thought was committed, is being this real man, is being this hero, right? I'm gonna sink with the ship if I'm gonna die with my people, if it comes to it.
Yeah, to build on that was when the Biden administration offered him a ride, basically an airlift out, a helicopter lift out of his country. He said, "I don't need a ride. I need ammo, rocket launchers, weapons." He said, "I don't need a ride." He's been the focal point of why the resistance has been so strong.
Yeah.
Right? Around 66,000 Ukrainian men from all across the world returned back to Ukraine to help. Those people involved like millionaire boxers. They're millionaires.
Yeah.
They came back and they're still fighting for their country.
Yeah.
His heroism, like his acts of heroism, is actually uniting his people to endure all these things.
Yes.
And is providing them hope that they can win. Especially when you couple that with the inexperience of the conscripts of the Russian army. These are not soldiers. They're like 19, 18 teenagers who were given a gun who didn't know how to load the weapon. Right? That's the reason why they've been successful. 50% of it is the inability for Russia to train its soldiers. And the second is the people has been resistant so well.
Dr. Chow, say that if Zelensky is watching, do you have anything to say to him?
Well, Mr. Zelensky, if you're watching, I want to thank you for your heroism, standing up to these fascist regimes and leaders that are trying to invade your country, invade your people, and impede on democratic values. And at this time, you're doing a great job in uniting your people and defending, your country where other people are not intervening, namely, other foreign countries that intervene. He already given up on NATO. He said that he given up on that false hope that NATO is going to intervene. Something like that.
So also I want to say to the President Zelensky and the Ukrainians who are fighting on the front lines. I just want to say that, we're with you. I'm with you. Dr. Chow is with you. I think most Americans are also with you. On that note, we will conclude on today's segment. Thank you all for watching. Again, this is Dr. Ronnie Chow.
Thank you for having me.